All right, let's dive into something that's, well, it's both puzzling and really tragic. It's all happening on the roads of Meghalaya. We've got this paradox where some seemingly good news is actually masking a much darker, much more dangerous reality.
So check this out. If you just glance at the data from 2022 to 2023, you might think things are improving. I mean, road accidents, they're down by 9%. That sounds great, right? But, and this is the big but, road fatalities are up by 3%. Think about that for a second. Fewer crashes, but more people are dying.
So, that's the big question, isn't it? The central mystery we're going to unpack. How on earth is that possible? If accidents are going down, why are deaths going up? It just doesn't add up. And to figure it out, we have to look way beyond the initial collision.
Okay, so where do we start? The most obvious place, right? Let's look at the accidents themselves. Maybe, just maybe, the crashes that are still happening are simply getting a lot worse, a lot more severe. And yep, that's exactly what the official report says. It points to one key reason: the severity of collision has increased. So, in plain English, when a crash does happen now, it's just way more dangerous. The impacts are more violent.
Now, what's causing that? Well, it's not just one thing. First, you've got the geography of Meghalaya itself. We're talking mountainous terrain, super sharp curves. Then you throw in poorly maintained roads, potholes, missing guardrails, and top it all off with risky driving habits like speeding or drunk driving, and yeah, you've got a recipe for absolute disaster. The collisions are just bound to be more lethal.
But here's the thing. As much sense as that makes, it's only part of the story. It doesn't fully explain what's going on. The severity of the crash is a big deal, for sure. But the real problem, the heart of this tragedy, it often begins in the moments right after the crash.
And that brings us to something absolutely critical in emergency medicine: the golden hour. This is where our whole investigation pivots, We're moving from a story about bad roads to a story about bad medicine, because it turns out it's not just the crash that's killing people. So what is the golden hour? If you haven't heard of it, it's basically the first 60 minutes right after a serious traumatic injury. Getting someone to a doctor for proper medical care within that hour, it's everything. It can literally be the difference between life and death. After that window closes, the chances of survival just drop off a cliff.
And this quote from the report just says it all. We are losing lives not just to crashes, but to the healthcare vacuum after crashes. A healthcare vacuum. Wow. That really reframes the whole problem, doesn't it? It's not just the crash, it's what happens, or really, what doesn't happen next.
So how exactly is this precious golden hour just slipping away? Well, it's a total breakdown in 3 stages. First, the ambulance is late. We're talking 30 to 60 minutes just to show up. Second, when it finally does, it's driving on those same terrible roads, which can make the injuries even worse. And third, even if you make it to a hospital, chances are it's not equipped to handle severe trauma anyway.
Let's put that ambulance delay into perspective, okay? The goal, the standard, is about 15 minutes for a city and 30 for a rural area. But in Meghalaya, the reality is 30 to 60 minutes. The golden hour could be over before help even arrives. And get this, there's no GPS tracking to send the nearest ambulance. That's just a basic, critical system that's completely missing. And this is not some new, sudden problem. This has been going on for a long time. The main ambulance service, the 108 service, has been described as being in limbo for more than 4 years. 4 years! This isn't just a bump in the road, it's a long-term systemic failure.
This all leads to a really powerful idea called the fatality multiplier. It's a way of understanding that a death on the road is almost never because of just one thing. Instead, it's the tragic endpoint of a whole chain of different failures, all linked together.
Just look at how this chain of failure works. It's like a domino effect. You start with an engineering failure, maybe a poorly designed road or a missing barrier. That leads to the crash. Then you have an enforcement failure. The drunk driver wasn't caught, the speeder wasn't stopped. Then, the emergency response fails. The ambulance is way too late. That's followed by a healthcare failure. The nearest hospital doesn't have a trauma center. And finally, even a public training failure. Bystanders at the scene don't know basic first aid. If you could have just fixed one of those links, the outcome might have been totally different. And that's the key takeaway, right? You can't just fix the roads and call it a day. It's not enough. Sure, better roads are great, but they won't save a life if the ambulance never shows up or the hospital can't treat the injury. You have to address the entire chain. So what we're really looking at here is a massive systemic failure. It's not just one broken part.
The whole system is broken. And that means we have to completely rethink what road safety even means.
I mean, listen to this quote again. It just nails it. The roads in Meghalaya are death traps, yeah? But not just because of potholes. They're death traps because when an accident happens, the victims just don't get to a hospital in time. The pothole might start the problem, but it's the broken healthcare system that delivers the final blow. And if you want to see the whole story in one simple picture, this is it. The crash itself, it's part of the problem. But the much, much bigger piece of the pie, the bigger failure, is everything that happens after the crash. That's where the real fight for life is being lost again and again.
And that really is the bottom line here. This completely transforms the problem. We're not just talking about an engineering problem anymore, something you can fix with asphalt and concrete. This is a full-blown public health crisis. In Meghalaya, you can't even talk about road safety without talking about the healthcare system.
So let's end with the question that this whole thing leads to. It's really the most important one. When you see that number of fatalities going up, you have to ask yourself, how many of those people died not because of the impact of the crash, but because the very system that was supposed to save them failed them? It's a really tough question, and it changes how you see everything.